And we continue. We are almost done with our book here. Chapter 32. Back to the blues. The happy blues. The go to Europe and make money blues. The International Blues Festival. The College Circuit Blues Concerts. The rediscovery of the deep, dark Delta blues. The steady, never say die blues. The back to basic blues. The blues, the pure 12-bar blues. Suddenly the blues were doing wonders for my business. This was the mid-'80s, and the white world, especially the young white world, was going blues crazy. I give credit to Stevie Ray Vaughan, who was the baddest of all the young white boys. Stevie kicked ass. He'd listened to Freddie and Albert and B.B., all the kings. He was on his way to be crowned a king himself. He had the real feeling and no-nonsense pain of a blues great. He and his brother Jimmy had grown up poor in Dallas, where they related to black culture. They had black souls. Stevie was also a great showman and a charismatic character. He had that Johnny Guitar Watson / Jimi Hendrix fireworks guitar style. Like the legendary cats before him, he gave his guitar a voice and flavor all its own. The damn thing wept, sobbed, and just about had a nervous breakdown every time he played. Stevie made old blues sound new. And he got young white fans to start listening to old farts like me. I thank him. It broke my heart when he was killed in that chopper accident in 1990. He'd been sober for a good while, was in good shape, and about to get even greater. So many tragedies on the rock and roll road. Lost an arm here. Hang on. There's like a whole bunch of birds. Again, I have the window up because, it's windy. All right, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Let's go back. So many tragedies on the rock and roll road. I thought about the road I'd been on, starting out as a church girl, then a rhythm and blues teenager. Soon they were calling it rock and roll, then soul, with a sprinkling of jazz ballads for good measure. Sung about everything. But in the 80s, don't ask me why, I was looked at as a traditional blues singer in the Muddy Waters tradition. Lupe de Leon was back as my manager, saying, "Look at it, don't fight it, it means work. I can book you in blues festivals all over America and in Europe too. They want you as a blues headliner." They, of course, were white people. Black folks don't have much use for old blues. That's probably because blues reminds us of the old days when we were chained up even tighter. Well, part of me resented the label, blues singer. Sure, I can sing the blues all night long. I love the blues. I honor the form. But another part of me knows I can sing country and western just as soulfully, not to mention hard rock. I hate restrictions, The survivor part of me, though, said take the money, and I did. A combination of my Olympics exposure and the blues renaissance meant bigger bucks than I'd seen in years. Lupe did a fantastic job booking me all over the world and fighting for the best deals. I enjoyed traveling overseas and was amazed to see how many fans I had in foreign countries. I thought I was all the way back, but I wasn't. You see, dope wasn't done with me yet. Next story out of chapter 32. This time the dope was legal. Turned out I got hooked on codeine as a way of easing off coke. I'd used the stuff before, but never in great quantities. As time went on, though, I grew more dependent on the pills, even if it took me a while to admit it. Pat Canis had started working as my assistant. In addition to being my good friend, Pat's a trained nurse. She was in charge of all my medicines. All but one. I was in charge of the codeine bottle. I didn't want Pat to know how much I was taking. I was trying to fool her and myself. And I was doing a pretty decent job until we arrived in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I started having dreams. I dreamt I misplaced my codeine pills and fell into a panic. Started running down strange streets, calling strange doctors, pleading with nurses, getting hysterical over these damn lost pills. In one dream, I was in a town in Mississippi I'd never seen before. In another, I was in the middle of the Arabian desert. Well, the dream came true. I'd worked the late show in the lounge in this fancy Brazilian hotel and came back to my room. When I looked in my purse, the codeine pills were missing. I couldn't go to bed without them. I didn't want to tell Pat how anxious I was, so I acted like everything was okay and started panicking big time. I got the sweats and the chills and started thinking like a crazy woman. The maid done stole my codeine. The room service waiter robbed me. Someone got those pills and I want them. If I can't have them, even though Sao Paulo is a dangerous city at night, I'll sneak out of here and get a cabbie to help me find something on the streets even stronger than codeine. Something like heroin, which is my drug of choice. A drug I haven't had for 15 years and I want so bad tonight I can taste the shit flowing through my veins and hitting my brain like a ton of bricks. That's what I'll do. I'll shoot smack. But I didn't. I found the codeine in the pocket of my robe, took the pills, and fell asleep. When I woke up, though, I couldn't bullshit myself any longer. After what I'd been through the night before, I knew I was hooked. Pat, I told my friend the next day, in a couple of weeks I'm going to be 50, and I'm still a dope fiend. When I get home, first thing I'm going to do is check my ass into a hospital. And I did. I went to the Betty Ford out in Palm Springs. Turned out to be the perfect place for me, teaching me things I never learned in Tarzana. The Betty Ford has a way of making people look good. Everyone's tan with bleached hair and healthy smiles. Even the little old lady alcoholics with their blue hair and wrinkly skin are sitting in the sun, chilling out. At Betty Ford, you soon learned that everyone, even the prim and proper housewives, with their cultured pearls and Gucci warm-up suits, has a secret medicine chest. Everyone's hooked on something. Like at Tarzana, it took me a while to get the hang of the place before I could benefit from the program. I had to knock another chip off my shoulder. When I checked in, I was a wreck. Heavy, road-weary, tired, barely able to move. Codeine had taken its toll. And when I was told to take my medicine, I had to walk from my cottage to the Firestone building, way on the other side of the complex. I pulled an Etta. Why the hell do I have to drag myself all the way over there? I wanted to know. Because you need to muster up your energy, the administrator answered. You need to get moving. I was cranky. I'm always cranky when I start up rehab, but I soon fell in line and liked what I saw. My 28 days at Betty Ford seemed like a year. The program was fantastic. They kept me moving. From movies to study groups to group therapy to individual therapy to lectures by famous doctors from all over the world. The program is highly intelligent and treats the patients with great respect. I was like a little kid, running to the auditorium so I'd have a good seat to hear the experts talk about dream analysis or good nutrition. I became a leader, what they call a granny, the person in charge of a cottage. It reminded me of Tarzana, where I'd become a senior coordinator. But unlike Tarzana, there was a greater humanity and compassion offered at Betty Ford. They introduced me to the 12-step programs, and I had no trouble admitting that my life was unmanageable. It had been unmanageable for years. I also loved the idea of surrendering to a higher power. That went with what I'd learned as a little girl about a loving and forgiving Jesus. The 12 steps are about making a moral inventory, admitting to yourself, to God, and to your family the exact nature of your wrongdoings. Nature of your wrongs. That's not the same as doings. The steps are about being honest and understanding that any real recovery has to be spiritual. Amen. I dug the steps because they combine psychology with God offering a deeper kind of healing. Tarzana had been rough. That kind of brutal confrontation was probably just what I needed back in the 70s. But by 1988, as a middle-aged woman, I was looking for something less gut-wrenching. I didn't need to be yelled at anymore. During 12-step meetings, there was no crosstalk, meaning that while people were testifying about their addictions, they couldn't be interrupted or belittled. You learn to listen with your heart as well as your head. The group therapy sessions at Betty Ford were powerful. One woman resented me because she thought I was rich and famous. She was a waitress and didn't think I could relate to her being a wino. I started telling her about Tarzana, where I had to scrub the floors with a toothbrush. I told her about the years I was on the streets, on my knees in some alley, or shooting up in some nasty toilet, wondering how in the hell I was ever going to get sane again. I told her after I'd put down heroin, coke came and kicked my butt. And then codeine, and how I knew I was no better than the funkiest junkie in Watts. She heard me and cried. Then I cried. I don't cry much, but when I do, look out. People get scared when they see me crying, because I go all the way out, sobbing like a hysterical infant. I cried a lot to my private therapist at Betty Ford when I discussed Dorothy. Dorothy hated artists and had been threatening him something awful. We even had to get a restraining order to keep her from the house. That broke my heart. My mother hadn't changed. She was still moving to a different motel every few days. But I still harbored the hope that one day we would reconcile. I hated the fact that we were still at each other's throat. And then there was also the unfinished business of my father. All these years I clung to the thought of meeting Minnesota Fats and trying to figure out one way or the other whether he was the one. By the time I got out of Betty Ford clean and sober and equipped with new life understanding, I felt strong enough to give it a try. And that is the end of chapter 32, page 250. Got 2 chapters left, and I'm trying my best to get them for us. Been reading to you from Rage to Survive, Etta James, written with David Ritz. Oh, I appreciate you. Sorry, my little wind is dirty, but it is so windy. This is the best I could do for you. I appreciate you.